Well, good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday. So excited because we have many of our Weaver alumni, our Los Alamitos High School seniors, who will be joining us today in the morning to really do a walkthrough so we can say congratulations to them. And I am just so pumped that they're all going to be here. I'm really excited because we have one of those seniors, Gabrielle Morales, who will be leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And then we have our own PTA president, the wonderful Ruth Anne Kurkjian, who will be reading chapters 42 through 44 of Song for a Whale. We're almost at the end tomorrow. I'm really excited because I get to end this amazing book with you. So we are 2 days out from the end of the school year. I hope everybody has an absolutely amazing day. I'm so excited to welcome our seniors this morning, and I'm just really looking forward to us seeing what you are able to do today. Have a great day, everybody.
Good morning, Weaver. My name is Gabrielle Morales, and I am a graduating senior from Los Alamitos High School and a Weaver alumni. In the fall, I will be attending The Ohio State University with a full-ride academic scholarship. My favorite memory of Weaver is having so much fun with my friends at the Weaver Carnivals. Now, if you would please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Please remove all hats and hoods and place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated, and thank you very much.
Good morning, friends. I am Mrs. Kurkjian, and I am mom to Claire in Mrs. Gardia's 4-5 combo and Jack in Dr. Tom's second grade class. I am so happy to be here today to read a few chapters of Song for a Whale. Chapter 42. Cold water knifed my face as I drove into the bay. For as long as possible, I stayed under the surface, pushing through the water while aiming for the spot where I'd seen 55's blow spout. My lungs screamed for me to breathe. I lifted my head for just a second and inhaled like I'd never get another breath, then ducked below the surface again. With eyes wide, I scanned the waters around me for Blue 55. I kicked the water, reaching for a growing shadow ahead, not stopping until the whale was right in front of me. This wasn't how I'd planned to meet him, but it was happening. No picture I'd ever seen could compare to seeing the whale up close. He didn't seem quite real before, when he was just an image on a screen or a photo on my wall. I floated in the bay, staring into the whale's dark eye, impossibly small for such a huge animal, no bigger than the palm of my hand. But when I gazed into its depths, it was like 55 was showing me everything he'd ever felt and everything he'd ever seen. He stared back. Was there recognition there? A connection? Did he have any idea how far I'd come for him? It didn't matter anymore. We were there together. I'd found him. He'd never know what he meant to me, but that was okay. I didn't speak his language, and he didn't need to be fixed. He was the whale who sang his own song. We circled, studying each other. I surfaced to take a breath. The orange boat from the tagging expedition was headed in our direction. I'd have to join them soon, but I wasn't ready to leave the whale I'd been chasing for so long. Blue 55 wouldn't need to breathe again, maybe not for another 20 minutes. He waited, hovering beside me each time I surfaced. We were almost close enough to touch, but maybe he'd want to keep some distance. He didn't swim away, just glided around me, keeping his eye on mine. I'd held out my hand. Those waters were his home, and I was a guest. I traveled more than 4,000 miles to meet Blue 55. The last few feet would be up to him. He drifted closer, closing the gap between us until his face brushed my fingertips. I slid open my hand alongside his body, the dark gray-blue skin. His parents had given him their colors, but neither could give him their language. So he made his own. I'd have just a moment to share mine with his. I rested my hand on his side, then tapped out his name. 55, 55, 55. You're a poem, do you know that? A new poem came to me then, just as easily as if Grandpa were there signing it with me. I kept my hands in the 5-hand shape, but closed the fingers together. A good shape for ocean waves and music. Your music sailed through the ocean and over the land and carried me here. Sing your song. I will never write down the poem. It belonged to this whale, and I'll leave it here in the sea, where it will live in the space above and below and all around him. Chapter 43. He remembered a time, one he tried so hard to forget, a time before he knew the loneliness, the song he'd ached for, had searched for in the world's seas, was here. Calls like his own filled the waters around him. He didn't know this place, but the feeling it gave him, one deep in his memory, told him he was home. The whale dove down and rose up and reclaimed every song he'd ever created and abandoned on the waves. He sang them all right then in a bellow of music that ripped through the ocean. And after all the years of calling and searching, after so much time in loneliness, so many calls left unheard and unanswered, the whale thought that maybe, finally, someone was listening. I'm reading chapter 44. Sound can move anything if it's strong enough. The bellowing song of Blue 55 traveled through me so strongly that my body vibrated like one big radio speaker. Of all the sounds in the world, this one had to be the most beautiful. I knew that without ever having heard a thing. I'd made a song for him, and he gave me his own right back. I wished I could stay there forever, where I'd always feel the waves of that music. The cold and the need for air were the only things that could tear me away. I grabbed for the surface, while 55's music still rippled through the water. He swam back to me, yet nudging my side like he was making sure I was okay. We surfaced together, then swam towards the boat. I raised my hand to wave. Andy stood up near the front. She pointed at me as she said something to the driver. Then she turned to me and her mouth formed the question, Iris? I nodded and smiled, even though I was shivering. The man tossed me a life preserver. Before grabbing on for them to pull me aboard, I rested a palm on the side of the whale's face to tell him goodbye. Keep singing, Blue 55. As the boat drove toward us, the sanctuary building, I was thinking the cold water must have frozen my brain. It looked like my parents were waiting for me on the dock. Frozen as I wasn't hallucinating. My parents stood there, arms around each other, on the dock in front of the sanctuary, along with Grandma. I braced myself for them to lecture me about the serious trouble I was in, but they didn't. Certainly it would come, but they were holding it for later. Dad was the first one to wrap me in a hug. When he let go, I stepped back so he could see me. With shivering hands, I signed. I didn't miss the boat. Or the train, he added. He put his coat around me and led me inside. Sorry for everything, I told him. Am I grounded for life? He nodded. Maybe longer. Totally worth it. Make a splash is another figure of speech I understand better now. Usually it means to make a strong impression and to get a lot of attention. Thankfully, I did make a big splash when I jumped in the water because it caught the attention of a man on a nearby dock. He flagged down Andy and pointed me out. I didn't remember screaming when I hit the water, but apparently I did that too. After my email to Mom asking her not to blame Grandma for our trip, my parents had guessed that I'd gone looking for the whale. My postcard from Alaska was a bigger clue. All they had to do then was search online for news about Blue 55. They got on a plane to Oregon and drove to Lighthouse Bay, where they met Andy. My punishment would wait until we got home. For now, they just wanted to see me and know that I was all right. And I was. Grandma and I would head back to the ship to finish the cruise, then fly home together. We promised not to take any more detours. Mom didn't say much. She mostly just held me. Now and then, she pulled away to brush back my damp hair and look at me like she was making sure I was really there before holding me again like she never let go. I hugged her back to let her know that I was okay with me. And Andy brought me another cup of hot chocolate that helped to warm me up, along with Dad's coat and the blankets the staff gave me. While my clothes dried, I changed into a sanctuary t-shirt and a pair of pajama pants I had packed after we picked up my backpack from the jetty. I did get that tour Andy had promised, even though we weren't at her sanctuary in Appleton. The staff let her show me around and introduce me to all those animals I'd seen on the website. Computer screens in one of the offices showed graphs with wavy lines that moved up and down. They looked like the graphs I'd seen in articles about whale songs. Andy pointed out the labels for each one, showing where the hydrophones were then picked, that the hydrophones were that picked up whale songs. A line on the last graph moved up and down close to the line labeled 55 hertz. Blue 55's graph showing that he was singing. Andy slid a notepad between us and wrote, "Have you thought about what you'll be when you're older?" I shrugged. I always figured I'd do something with electronics, but wasn't sure what that would be, what I do every day for a job. All of this, Andy pointed to the computer screen, and what you did with the song is called acoustic biology. People in that field study sounds that animals make when communicating. I could work with sound and whales, like those scientists I'd read about who studied whale songs to make migration maps. Learned the song of this whale, and I will learn it for others. Andy added, "You'll be good at it," then crossed it out. Beneath that, she wrote, "You're good at it." Before we left the sanctuary, Dad held my hand as we stood at the window to watch Blue 55 swim throughout the bay. He would stay or he would move on. After swimming in warmer waters for the winter, maybe he'd come back here to this place where he'd heard his song and he'd remember a girl who swam with him when it first played. He and Mara, the young blue whale, might learn to communicate with each other just a little. As she grew older, Mara would look and sound more like his mother. They didn't speak the same language, but once in a while, one of them might say the right thing. They'd have that much, and that would be worth coming back for.